Well, good morning. Like she said, my name is Webb. I'm a forecaster with the Weather Service office in Louisville. I love a good top 10 list, so this is going to be a fun look at the year we've had so far. And keeping in mind that there are 2 months for awful things to happen, so it's not a complete and exhaustive list, but you know, in general, it's you know, it's a collaborative effort. We had the offices in Paducah and Nashville submit some slides, and then me and a couple of others at our office, you know, we put together these list of events, just taking a look back at the most impactful weather that we've had across the Ohio and Tennessee valleys so far this year. I'm just going to go chronologically. They're not ranked or anything. So we're going to start with some winter weather. And I'm going to cheat right off the bat. I've got 2 events in one. So back-to-back winter storms, January 12th. And this is a really interesting event. We had a deep upper trough and an Arctic front that moved through the area from the 11th into the 12th. We actually had highs in the 60s on the 11th. It's a really dynamic system. We had some strong winds with this system as well, and that helped in causing power outages, some downed trees and limbs and that sort of thing. But after the Arctic front moved through, we saw temperatures rapidly dip into the mid-20s, and this was a transition event. We got a lot of rain, some heavy rain on the 11th, and then the colder air, you know, gradually pushed in from the west, and you know, I know portions of western Kentucky saw a little bit higher snowfall totals, you know, with that colder air arriving quicker. But we gradually saw the precip transition to a freezing rain and sleet mix. I know Bowling Green, Russellville, Hopkinsville, this area, like kind of along and just west of 65, got maybe 2/10 up to a 1/4 inch of icing. Before the precipitation was able to transition over to all snow. So if we take a look, here's a couple of maps. You can kind of see some of those reports here, those 0.2, 0.25 icing reports. That's ice accumulations on the left. And we even got a report of around a 1/4 inch of ice all the way up into southwest Jefferson County, you know, up toward our office. And into southern Indiana, and then the snowfall totals ranged anywhere from 1 to about 6 inches. You know, highest amounts generally west of I-65. And a quick plug at the bottom there, that URL, that's our website, weather.gov/Louisville/events. Or you can do LMK, that's our office ID. Some of you may or may not know that, but you can get to our home pages just by, you know, like weather.gov/Paducah or /Louisville, and that'll take you to the same site. And then /events. And so after the bigger events, you know, our staff will put together a review of the event. We'll typically do a brief synopsis and summary maps and precipitation maps, LSRs, storm reports, that sort of thing. So. Moving on, oh, I'm sorry. I've got the map from Paducah as well. I think Paducah got around 6 or 7 inches of snow from this particular event, and those other offices have similar pages. And if you're ever interested, I mean, you can look back across multiple years, and you can go back and read these summaries of the bigger events. And just some other highlights from this event. Further west, you know, out in western Kentucky, it arrived during that morning commute. The snow was certainly heavy at times, visibility down to a 1/4 mile. And I mentioned the strong winds earlier. And then very, very cold air pouring in behind that system limited the effectiveness of road salt. And then numerous accidents, and I know one thing that I think Paducah wanted to get across with this particular storm is when I go to the next winter storm, just a couple days later, the impacts were very different in terms of just preparedness and the character of the event. They're just very different storms. I'm combining them into one event, but they are separate meteorological events. Unfortunately, there was one hypothermia fatality, but very treacherous travel as that colder air poured in on the 12th of January. Numerous accidents, some highway closures. And then just a couple days later, we had another secondary cold front that moved through, and we had a band of just all snow that pivoted across the region. From the evening of the 15th into the 16th of January, the system stalled out a bit over western Kentucky, resulting in over 12 hours of nearly continuous snowfall. So they ended up with a swath of up to like 6 to 8 inches of snow from southeast Missouri into western Kentucky. But from the impact perspective, this system was a little different. You know, the roads during the daytime, while the sun was up, were okay. I mean, not too bad. There was a jackknife semi there in Mayfield. However, we did see even colder air kind of flood the region, and it stayed very cold for multiple days after that. And I know that schools in Tennessee, I think, missed the entire week. And you can see those totals, just 2 to 4 inches generally across Middle Tennessee, with those higher totals northwest, extending northwest from Nashville. So, number 2, Ohio River flooding. This is one of the events that we added. It was interesting because when we're collaborating with Paducah and Nashville, I think they sent us the exact same events. So that left us to kind of fill in the gaps. So we have a handful of events that we added. Really significant flooding event back in mid to late February. The Ohio Valley got 8 to 9 inches of rain in a 2-week period. So roughly, the 15th of February through March 1st. Those rainfall totals were 200 to 400% of normal for that time frame. It was actually the hydrograph you see on the left is the Ohio River at McAlpin Upper. That's Louisville. That's one of the 2 gauges in Louisville along the Ohio River. That crested at 35.64 feet, the 10th highest crest on record. It hadn't been that high since March of '97. A lot of you will probably remember March '97 and the flooding that occurred then. And then downstream at Hamilton, it crested at 50.68 feet, and that actually eclipsed major flood stage there. Moderate flooding in Louisville. But there's some shots along the Ohio. So moving right along, this is an event that contributed to that flooding from the previous slide. So this is right in that window, mid to late February. Tornado outbreak and flash flooding. So really significant severe weather event. We had 2 waves of storms. A warm front lifted north across the region Saturday afternoon with thunderstorms forming along it, and then a cold front later moved through the region late in the afternoon and evening, sparking severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. 2 tornadoes right here in Hopkinsville. Widespread flash flooding due to 5 to 8 inches of rain that had fallen over the past 3 to 5 days. Altogether, 19 tornadoes across western and central Kentucky. 6 EF2s, so that's a big day. Numerous injuries, at least 40 homes damaged in Murray. Unfortunately, we had at least two confirmed fatalities. I don't want to, you don't want to gloss over that, and I don't want to get that wrong. But two fatalities that I know of. One from that EF tornado that tracked into Logan County, and then a flash flood fatality as well. That's a statewide 5-day rainfall map ending the morning of the 25th. Should have put labels on the map. What is this? So that's generally 1 to 2 inches out here in southeast Kentucky. Not as big of a flood event, but 2 to 3, 3 to 4. So this is 4 to 6, and then 6 to 8, kind of along the river there. And here's a map of that EF2. 9 people injured at a destroyed apartment building. There's some shots, some additional shots from some of that damage, from EF2 damage, and then flooding. So, back to winter. First day of spring, March 20th. We had a significant winter storm for portions of southern Indiana and a lot of central Kentucky. Low pressure developed and kind of pivoted east of the region, and then we had a band of snow that swept across. And the heaviest and most persistent snow occurred right over the Louisville metro in a lot of southern Indiana, where we got 5 to 10 inches, and it was a heavy, wet snow. It caused some tree and power issues. No extended power outages, but there were some. So moving right along, April 3rd. So this was a typical springtime strong cold front. Multiple rounds of severe storms developed along and out ahead of the cold front. And the storms progressed rapidly eastward. We had a couple strong bow echoes with this event, wide swaths of wind damage in central Kentucky, multiple tornadoes this day as well. And we had large hail up to 3 inches. 13 tornadoes, including 2 EF2s and 10 EF1s, 1 EF0. There's a look at some of the damage and the shot of that 3-inch hail. All right, wettest Kentucky Derby. This was another one of our events, of course. This one was a little bit unexpected. We didn't have quite this much rain in the forecast, but this year was actually the wettest Derby on record. On May 5th, 3.15 inches of rain at Louisville International, breaking the previous Derby record of 2.31 inches, which occurred on May 11th, 1918. Actually, Louisville got 1.83 inches of rain between 3 and 4 p.m. Just hours before the race, the big race, and that resulted in some flash flooding, road closures, significant ponding on multiple roads across Louisville. Needless to say, the track was deemed sloppy. Justify 1 in 2 minutes and 4 seconds. But severe weather, June 26th. So we're going to move into the kind of the heart of the severe weather here. The next 2 events, you've already heard about the derecho on the 28th, so this is a couple days before that, on the 26th. Multiple rounds of storms moved through the region. First line of storms in the morning produced a weak tornado and 2 microbursts in southern Illinois and southwest Indiana. And then wind damage was also reported in northwest Kentucky. And then training of the storms during the morning also led to flash flooding. And then additional strong to severe storms developed during the late morning in east central Kentucky. We had a tornado on the east side of Louisville, but by mid-afternoon, as the first line of storms moved off to the east, another round of storms moved in from the west. We had a microburst in Bremen, Kentucky, estimated winds up to 85 miles an hour, causing extensive tree damage. And then another line of storms followed closely behind, progressing rapidly through western Kentucky. And a lot of observing sites reported winds between 45 and 63 miles an hour. So some impressive shots from that day. Richmond, Kentucky flooding. And there's east side of Louisville, EF1 damage. So then the derecho event and the other severe weather that occurred that day, EF1 tornado in Hickman County, Tennessee. And I won't stress the details of the derecho since we've already heard about that, but that's a great shot taken from the Paducah office, I assume, I believe. We'll watch the radar loop again anyway. Very, very impressive windstorm. Yes. You've already seen that map. All right, July 20th. Another big severe day, moderate risk day from SPC. Rounds of severe storms hammered southern Indiana and central Kentucky. Really strong, anomalous upper low for this time of year. We got very large hail, wind damage, torrential rain, and 4 tornadoes. They were generally weaker, 2 EF0s and 2 EF1s. But the largest hail of the year for sure. We had 4-inch hail reported in Tompkinsville, Kentucky, and then we had a 70-mile-per-hour wind gust measured at the Lexington Bluegrass Airport on this day. This was just a classic severe weather day. I mean, between 4 a.m. on July 20th to 4 a.m. on July 21st. In that 24-hour period, our office issued 573 products for our forecast area, in southern Indiana and central Kentucky. There's some shots, EF1 tornado damage in Hart County, so that's near Mumfordville. And then straight line wind damage in Lexington. I mentioned that 70-mile-per-hour gust at the airport. And then there's that 4-inch hail, which you just don't see that often. So that's number 9. So my 10th event is a tropical system. September 8th, the remnants, extratropical remnants of Gordon. Which we had fun with that. My boss is John Gordon. So the remnants of Gordon moved slowly across the Ohio Valley, bringing heavy rainfall and some severe weather. The main impacts were flash flooding and tornadoes. Altogether, across western and central Kentucky and then southern Indiana, we had 4 EF0s and 2 EF1s, so weaker tornadoes, which is what you would expect from tropical remnants. There's a shot, on near campus, U of L, and some very flashy creeks. So that is all I have. That's my email address at the top. Feel free to reach out if you ever need anything. Follow us all on Twitter, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.